been about 4 months, and I gotta say, the theme song, the new Lions theme song from John Page music, it still gets me rocking. It still gets me ready to roar every single time. So very excited today to be talking, to have talked, past tense, future tense. It's all confusing in the podcast time warp here, but I actually spoke to today's guest several weeks ago. His name is Don the Pleb. He has a YouTube channel, PlebMedia. Of course, I say YouTube. Really, where you want to find him now is Rumble, as I mentioned in the interview, because YouTube censors people like Don and censors people like us. We got another YouTube strike a few weeks ago, and that's why I encourage you all to go ahead and subscribe to our Odyssey channel, because we will never be censored on Odyssey, and our stuff will always be over there. So if you're ever looking for a video, looking for a YouTube, maybe we're shut down one week, maybe they remove something another week, fear not. It's all going to be over there on Odyssey. And I've been on a little bit of an Odyssey myself these past few weeks. Took a little road trip across the country to take care of some things I had to take care of, and got to meet a lot of people that I know in the Liberty world. Jason Stapleton, who of course I've known for years. He lived in Los Angeles when I was there. Got to meet up with him in Phoenix. Got to meet up with Buck Johnson of Counterflow, as well as Andrew from Popular Liberty, who you'll be hearing from right in this very spot in a couple weeks. And finally, I got to meet a guy named Brett Lindell out there in Florida, connected to him through Tho Bishop. And I got to say, great guy. I'm not going to get into his story because I'm going to let him tell it. He's going to be a guest on Lions Liberty sometime in the next few weeks. And always just really emphasize how much. And look, I've already met Buck before, met Jason before, was meeting Andrew and Brett for the first time, but really meeting people face to face, shaking those hands, really getting to know someone with, in the case of Brett, we had a 3 or 4 hour conversation. That's how you really get to know someone. That's how you really get to make connections. And that's what Liberty people need to be doing more of in their own lives, in their communities, etc. And less of the, here comes the hypocritical moment, less of the talking about everything online. Of course, that's what I'm doing here on Lions Liberty, but I'm encouraging you to also get out in person, shake those hands, meet people, because that's how you make progress. That's how you build bridges, etc., so on and so forth. Before we get into today's interview with Don the Pleb, I want to remind you, well, I'm not going to remind you about the first thing. Just going to warn you, there is a little bit of issue with his audio. In the beginning, he had a little bit of a mic thing that we just couldn't figure out. It is a little bit jarring at first, but trust me, it does get better, and the content is so fucking golden that you're going to forget about it anyway. So just be warned, but stick through it. You will not regret it. Also, don't forget, you could have seen this, heard this, all of that stuff live had you only supported Lions of Liberty on Patreon, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty, where we have all sorts of tiers. You can get on monthly calls with Brian, John, and myself. You can produce an episode of the show, the Nittany Special, every single month. There are so many options over there on Patreon. And if you want a more simple, less Patreon-y option, check us out on Locals at lionsofliberty.locals.com. That being said, I have talked quite enough, I think. It is now time to hear from Don the Pleb. All right, my guest today is the owner, the operator, the host, whatever you want to call him, over at PlebMedia. His name is Don. He is Don the Pleb. Don, are you ready to roar?
I am ready to roar. You know what? I'm not going to, because hopefully I won't break the mic this time. What can I say?
Well, Don, you have been roaring for quite some time. That you've been mostly on YouTube. And I wanted to talk to you because you're one of the many, I would say, well, maybe not one of the many, but one of the very coherent and entertaining voices on the right side of politics, I would say. And you could take the term right either way there, I suppose. But I've really been enjoying what I've been seeing from you lately. So I'm happy to have you here. And why don't we just start with, I guess, the Don the Pleb origin story. I presume you weren't just Don the Pleb from birth. So what actually got you here? What led you into the realm of politics, and how did Don the Pleb come to be?
So I grew up in California, which is it's like Disneyland, but backwards. It's the worst place on earth. And I very early in life started to notice that stupid people in Sacramento were making my life miserable, and I didn't like it. And so I started, I was a giant political dork from like teenage years. For those that remember when Fark.com got created, I was reading that from the beginning. And then I started looking at the comments there, and I was like, how do you people read these stories every day and not come to the conclusion that all of this is terrible policy? Like, we do stuff, everything gets screwed up, do more stuff. Can we just stop? And then I spent some time out in the working world in California, and that sucked balls. All the stuff that people talk about these days, like, oh, there's all these classes and they're all stupid and it's all about diversity. I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that since like 2001. It's pretty goddamn terrible. You go to work and I worked at Intel, like the chip manufacturer, for a while, and they had it was during their don't be a suit campaign. And so everybody's walking around in jeans and t-shirts and they're like, yeah, man. So like the next step of this is we get to, and they're basically talking affirmative action, right? And that's going to make Intel great. I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Like the black guy that works next to me is pretty cool, but do you have like a stock of him? Is that if you do, why didn't you hire them? What am I doing here? And on it went, and I went through some other crazy nonsense, did a bunch of construction work around that time, joined the Marine Corps, spent a handful of years there, blowing stuff up. You will still often hear me talk about cannons and war things that are going on. I am a giant contrarian, apparently, insofar as I have no belief in the world that people with an artillery unit of any variety are actively leveling cities when there's still cities standing, because that's not how artillery works, nor bombs, nor any vaguely modern military. And anyhow, I got out of the Marine Corps, and then I ended up with a podcast because I went from sleeping like 4 to 6 hours a night for about 4 years to not having anything to do with all that time. Because when you're in the Marine Corps, they're like, "Oh, we could work you 20 hours a day." Yes, right. And so you get used to being up this long. So I'm scrolling through. Riots are happening back in the 2012 to 2014 era. I'm watching them live. I'm reading the news articles about them. Like, this propaganda crap is bullshit. This is not what's happening at all. My wife one day goes, I swear to God, if you don't find someone else to talk to, like, we're going to get a divorce. All right. Like, I don't want to divorce you, but you need to get the fuck out of here. Talk to somebody else. And I'm like, all right, fine.
I know this well.
Right.
Very similar origin story from my rantings during my young, impressionable Ron Paul years. So that pretty much led to this podcast as well.
Yeah. And so I called up a friend of mine who had a bunch of free time. And I was like, well, man, you want to do like a podcast? Like talk about politics and stuff? And he was like, yeah, what the hell? Why not? And then I think he burned out pretty hard is what it came down to. It was like, dude, you have no idea how depressing this is. And I was like, I sit across from you. I know exactly how depressing this is. And so
podcasting is a burn. Like, you better fucking love doing it or you're gonna burn way the fuck out really fast.
Oh yeah. And for the people who do it, there was a while there I was doing 5 days a week, an hour every morning, plus like 1 to 3 interviews a day. And I was like, all right, we gotta turn the volume down on this just a hair. Like, that cannot be a thing. And so that. And then for a while there, after I'd been just talking about politics and news and what have you for a bit, I started going to protests and filming those. And going to protests is wild. If I wasn't getting old and starting to break down, I'd probably still be doing it. But sadly, age comes for all of us. So these days, I'm back to just talking about it. That and strategy, because I think the right just sucks balls at politics. And look, if you're listening to this and you're a political strategist and you're like, you just don't get it, I'm like, well, you know what? I know what losing looks like, and we're pretty good at that. So
yeah, and losing not just in the sense of one election or the last election or something. I mean, look at the last 100 years. It's like losing the entire culture, losing the education, losing at every single level.
Oh yeah, existential. Wow, hello, plane. Existential losing. Like,
I'm safe over there.
Yeah. Well, I don't see HRT, so we should be good. But yeah, losing in like an existential sense, like if you went back to even the open political figures who are always kind of milk toasty on the right, but if you went back to the open political figures of the 90s. And you told them what was going on today, half of them would have a heart attack and die right then and there. You're what? You're what? You're doing what to children? What's the inflation rate? Oh my God.
Even just the inflation rate they admit. I mean, that's the one they admit is shocking. Not the. I mean, the real one is we don't. I mean, it doesn't take too many trips to the grocery store to know that the real one is a lot higher than they reported.
Oh yeah, right around the time they started going, oh yeah, inflation's happening, because there was that period of time where inflation's not happening. The right is just making this up, right? And right about the time that you started to get articles that were like, okay, maybe inflation's happening. My wife comes home from like forgot stuff at the store shopping trip and is just staring at this receipt and is like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, what? She's like, I bought nothing and it was like $45. I'm like, yeah. I mean, you live with me. You had to know the inflation was coming. She's like, well, yeah, but I mean,
don't you watch my videos?
Right. And it's, I mean, it's going to be the same thing it always is. And I hate to sound so apathetic about it because it's going to be terrible, right? Make no mistake. But you want to know what inflation looks like? Go back and watch that video of Venezuelans beating a cow to death with shovels. That's what it looks like, at least this much.
And I hope we don't have actual. I hope I don't see actual cows being beaten to death in the street. But I mean, yeah, I took a trip to Florida. I'm over here in Mexico right now, where I wouldn't say inflation's hitting too hard, but this stuff all does trickle across the world. But I took one trip to Florida a few weeks ago, and same kind of thing. Like we were there for 3 days, so we were not, and we had an Airbnb without a stove, so we were not. This is not a major shopping trip. We bought like a couple things to eat for an Airbnb for like 2 days. That like this kind of stuff you can just like make in the microwave or open a bag of, and it was like you spent like $85, and I'm like, this used to be like this should be 2 weeks of eating well. Like, what is this? And we literally bought like you just like you said with your wife, we bought fucking nothing. Like literally almost nothing.
And it's so I feel kind of bad for this because when I was a kid, right? Get off my lawn. But when I was a kid, we'd just moved out of my house. I'm living in a 2-bedroom apartment with like 3 other guys, right? Because we're all working crap jobs in an expensive city, and it sucked. But a friend of mine and I, we just go through the couch and pull out like quarters and go to the dollar store and go, all right, that's a bag of pasta. That's I don't know. It says hamburger. Must be just close enough. Where's the pizza sauce? They've only got pizza sauce. Boom. And it goes, all right, like that's like $3.15. That's food for 2 days, And inflation at the rate that it's going, man, I hope you got 50s in that couch. I mean, it's just not going to be a feasible thing to live that way in any sense, There was
when I first moved to LA in like 2004, that we did the same thing. We did the dollar store. Like it's Friday night, we're broke. Let's see how much change we got, and like literally $4 or $5 we could buy because they'd have these little, not even that little. Like I think they were like a liter boxes of wine for literally at the dollar store. A couple of those, whatever other like 3 for $1 beers we can afford, we're off to the races. I don't think that's possible, even at the dollar store. I don't think dollar store is really $1 now, or you get way less stuff.
Yeah, a bunch of them are like $1.50 now, and I was like, kind of defeats the purpose of calling it the dollar store, doesn't it?
$1.49 store just doesn't have the same ring.
It doesn't, but at the rate we're going, it's going to be the $100 store by the time we retire.
Hey, I just found this $100 in my couch. Want to go grab a couple beers?
Right, hey, that's no joke. I found a $100 bill on the side of the road once when I was a kid. Well, when I was 18, right, 19, something like that. Was walking home from
life changer,
right? And I'm like, oh, I'm rich. And at this point, I'm like, yes, I got groceries till Friday, on Thursday.
Maybe I can eat tonight. Do you find like in your interactions with other voices on the right, or whatever interactions you may have with others on the right, that yes, there's like this outrage probably about the inflation, directing a lot of it towards Joe Biden, but do you think that a lot of people on the right understand inflation from like the technical aspect and really understand where it comes from? Or is it just Biden's in power now, so derp, yeah, make this guy bad, but as soon as we change power, they won't, make the same connections? Do you think they actually get the root cause of all
So at this point, I'm pretty sure basically everything is a propaganda war, right? Because if you want to get really technical about the inflation that we're getting right now, about 50% of it's Obama inflation, right? We're finally getting money out of the money markets as it trickles back in from the '08 subsidization, right? That's
really
finally
scary.
happening, right? And so some of this is, a decade in preparation to get here, and it just started in the past couple of years. This is where you see, like the Black Rocks and things turned all of that money that they had sitting in stocks into actual property. There's a bunch of inflation that happens when that happens, right? Because you're sort. It's like, the somebody the other day, some Sal or something, the arborist is like, buy coke because cocaine because they bury the money and they lose 10% of it to rats, and so you're creating deflation if you buy drugs. And I was like, funny, but not really. The reality of it being buried in the ground is much more important to deflation than whether or not they're losing 10% of it to rats, because it's not in circulation now. It is effectively non-existent until they buy something. And so when if you want to talk about whether or not people understand inflation, nobody anywhere is talking about how, coming up on 15 years ago now, when all the economists said, hey, look, what Obama's doing is relatively smart. You're not going to feel this for at least a decade. And when it kicks in, no one is going to remember that this happened. And they were dead balls on right. Nobody remembers that we pumped $30 trillion into the economy 15 years ago, right? And so what you get now is, oh, but the stimulus passed yesterday, right? And that is doing all the heavy inflation. Well, look, you don't have to like this, but when Democrats do inflationary things, they give it to big corporations and tell the big corporations to hang on to it, pay their bills in a very direct sense, but only to other major corporations. And they do that for a reason. They know damn well inflation's coming, but you don't feel it until it hits the general market. And when it hits the general market, they're just hoping the other side is in charge, right? Because, by the way, if Trump had won a second term, we'd still be getting this Obama inflation. Now, presumably the economy would be doing better, so it wouldn't hit quite so hard, but still, we get it. And if you had plotted 16 years from the time Obama got, put all this into effect, what you'd find is that the second term of a Republican president would be getting a lot of inflation. And then they could go, oh, it's your fault, right? I mean, they're not stupid. No matter how much they pretend to be, no matter how much we act like they are, they get what they're doing. And
it's almost like they predict based on normal political cycles, and they say, all right, this is going to hit in 10 years. Let's see, do the math. Yeah, it'll probably be in the second term of a Republican by then. But of course, Trump threw everything to the mix, and then they decided, well, we can't do 4 more years. So we got to have a whole new. We got to fortify some things, I guess.
Exactly. And so, when and dear all of the right wing, I love all of your autism. I really do. I love how right you are about everything, and you really are. On the other hand, when you come out to Obama and you say, we're not going to feel this for 10 years, you know what he hears? I'll be out of office. Good luck. And guaranteed that guy was sitting back and he had his own economists go, we could probably string this out, 10 years if we do it this way. Right. And again, they already know the Soviet Union did a bunch of stuff like this where they just delay it for a while so you wouldn't connect the two ideas, and on and on. Right. And so it's back of the napkin math, and they go, okay, we're proposing this. And then all the right wing economists come out and do all the work for him and go, oh, see, you can chart through all of this. Right. And they go, cool, we were right on the money.
I want to go back to, as you were kind of coming up, covering protests, and I think you said 2012, 2013 times, as you saw Donald Trump emerge as first flirting with the idea of running for president, I think a lot of people just kind of gave it the, all right, sure. And then running for president, I think you still got a lot of that, all right, yeah, whatever. But then at some point, it becomes a serious thing, and then a real thing, and then the realist thing. So when you were kind of coming up during those times, what were your first thoughts, your initial thoughts about Donald Trump, and how did those evolve as you saw him ascend all the way to the presidency and beyond? I don't know, wherever he is now, wherever
he is. When Trump first said he was running for president, I think I was in roughly the same boat as a lot of people. where this was a PR stunt, right? And I halfway think that sort of the way Trump does things is this was a hedged bet, in his opinion, right? Run for president, even if I don't win, I ran for president, right? And so it's good for the name, it's good for the brand, blah blah blah. If I win, well, it's good for the name, it's good for the brand. And I think the other side of that coin was, things are screwed up, and at least I'm willing to take a swing at it. I Probably the only time you will ever hear me say this, I think Shapiro was right when he said that Trump thought he was going to walk into office and the Senate and the House were just going to give him bills and he was going to wave the magic pen, and then things
like he'd be the CEO and everyone would just do whatever he commanded. And
right. And he would go out and say, we should do this because it will make America great. And then the lawyer people would go handle all the actual law writing. And then he could just, sign on the dotted line and be done. I don't think, and in fact, I think the more you go back and look at his first year, the more you will find out he was not at all ready for the absolute war that a lot of the U.S. government was willing to lay at his feet. In the world of when did it get serious, I think the second debate, the second Republican debate, he went from decently even numbers with everybody to just way out ahead. And at that point, I think that was about the moment that he became like, he's probably going to win. I mean, it was him and Rubio and Cruz for about 9 seconds, and then Rubio fell off because he sucks. And then after that, it was just him and Cruz, and Rubio spent most of his time trying to knock Trump out. And I went, that's not good. People hate you. You want Trump out? You should just shut your mouth, or support him, right? But it was right about then. I started getting calls from family members and friends and things going, have you heard what Trump is saying? And I went, yeah, I've heard what Trump is saying. I mean, like this is, I've been doing this for years. What are you talking about? Have I heard what Trump is saying? Well,
do you know I have this YouTube channel? Do you not know that this is what I do? Anyway.
Right. And they're all like, well, but he cares about the southern border, and China's terrible, and we should, he's saying all the right things. And I went, well, that's about half true, right? He is. A lot of the emotional rhetoric is great. A lot of the policy rhetoric is like, but okay, he's willing to go to the mat against people who are waging the economic warfare against us. All right, I'm in. He's interested at, and think, they're not sending their best rapists and thieves. Well, yeah, when MS-13 is crossing the border whenever they feel like it, that's true. Like it or not, it's true. And so, yeah, it'd be a good thing to get that under control. I'm with you. After that, though, what exactly is it that Trump is proposing that you like? And nobody knew, right? And I went, okay, so we're doing that again, right?
I don't know, but he's hilarious. So whatever. He's got a couple good points, and he makes me laugh. What more do I need to?
And whether anybody likes it or not, I think Donald Trump likes this country. Right. I think he likes the premise of the country, the existence of it. He probably is thankful for what it has done for him and or allowed him to do. Take whichever phrasing appeals to you best. I think he does actually support the military, which, if you're talking to Republicans, is money in the bank every time. And specifically that you're not jerking people around. Right. And I think that was all pretty well demonstrated throughout the years that he was president. And that was about the only other thing that anybody had is, well, he actually cares about the troops. Right. And I went, easy to say. We'll see how it works out. And sure enough, I think he does. But after that, nobody had any idea what they wanted out of him. And I think that's really the problems. All of the problems that everybody has with Trump. Well, the left doesn't count. They're not people. But everybody else, right? All the problems they have with Trump come from nobody knowing what they wanted, right? Because Trump was, believe it or not, probably the only president in my lifetime that was responsive to his base. if Twitter got pissed off at him, specifically his base of Twitter got pissed off at him, he would shift gears. It's just on the fly. Oh, nope, we're not doing that anymore. And that's not, the only other thing I can think of that's even kind of like that is Bush Jr. said we're doing amnesty. And there were like nationwide protests. And he went, maybe we're not doing amnesty. Right? Other than that, though, nobody listens to the base. Nobody cares. Like, you got me in office. I got 4 years. At the end of the 4 years, I'm going to come back and tell you how I'm going to do all this other stuff for you that I'm not going to do. That was that.
The only other thing I can think of that, seems similar in a sense is when they were, I think it was around 2011, that they were whole hog ready to go to Syria after Assad because of the chemical weapons attack. And Obama even gave a speech like, crosses the red line, here we go. And then there were just, I guess, I don't know if it was from his base or what, but it does seem that there was enough sort of kerfuffle about it that he did back down from
that. This is going to seem like I'm just a partisan hack, and that's fine. Feel free.
No, please.
So,
hack away.
But my estimation of Obama is that he's a decent enough talker, but not a guy to be there when the meat meets the metal and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy enough to say there's a red line and you can't cross it. But the moment you got to do something, there's real consequences to doing something, right? Mm-hmm. And he's a guy who avoided consequences like the plague. He'd go out there and just say ridiculously stupid things all the time. But the moment anyone tried to pin him down on, I found out about that on the news, just like you. Like, bro, it's in your White House. Like, what do you mean you found out about it? Lois Lerner was just like sitting on your lap yesterday. You had no idea? Really? None? And so, given that his foreign policy was basically like Biden's, we lead from behind, soft-spoken kind of BS. And no, I'm not some massive neocon or anything. But if you're going to tell people, hey, if you do this, we're going to shoot you in the face, you better shoot people in the face because otherwise people don't believe you, right? And you don't get to just go make threats like that and then just leave them on the table. And people like Obama are perfectly happy to do that. People like Biden are decently well happy to do that. It's the only thing has my hopes up that we don't get nuked. Hopefully he's full of bluster and just an idiot.
When you look at Trump's foreign policy, like what you mentioned there, that you think he really does like the troops. And I think, he's certainly not a peacenik by any means. There was wars and drones raging all around the world while Trump was president, including the funding of everything going on in Yemen. But it does seem that when it comes to literal American troops, he was very reluctant to have them do really anything at all. Even the few military actions he took were always missiles or drones or what have you. But he really did seem to want nothing to do with actually invading a country or using the military in any kind of aggressive manner.
So he did do a few things, boots on the ground things. I know the guy that was shooting the battery that shot the barrel off the cannon, right, in Syria. I know the guy that was in charge of that. And friend of a friend, I know him personally, that guy personally, but friend was talking to him and asked him, when 2009, I was in Afghanistan, and the rules of engagement were just garbage, right? It was, you basically had to be dead before you were allowed to shoot back, unless you wanted to get court-martialed, which seems ridiculous, but that's really about how it was. And so he called him up and he said, what are the rules of engagement like? And the guy that was shooting the battery said, the rules of engagement will win. If you're going to go all the way. And that is exactly what we got told on the way, is if they call for fire support, blow something up. If you see guys with weapons charging you down, don't just waste random people, but if they're rushing your position, kill them. Which, if you're going to send the military out to do something, that's how you need to send them. Now, again, you can think I'm a giant warmonger or something, but in the end, you're telling a bunch of guys to go 10,000 miles away from where they live and put themselves in danger. It would be okay if, the vast majority of them came back. Now you can argue whether they should be there. That's fine. But once you put them there, don't make them die for nothing, right? And in the world of caring about troops, that is the kind of thing as president where it's no longer, once someone has their leg blown off, then you're allowed to shoot, right? And it's the same thing you'd want in your own front yard, right? Like if there's a guy running in your front yard and he's shooting your house with a 12 gauge, and you're like, well, he hasn't hit me yet, so I guess it doesn't matter, right? Like
until he blows my kneecap off, he has not violated the non-aggression principle, so I will refrain.
Exactly, right? And so when you talk about caring about troops, troops have a very different view of this than most people, right? Because no matter what anybody tells you, the vast majority of everybody who's ever been in the military is not there because Assad used chemical weapons, right? Like couldn't give a shit less, right? I'm here, one, because I was ordered to be here, two, because that guy's here and that guy's coming home and I'm making sure that guy next to me is doing okay. And when you get down to actual shooting, that's what it always is, right? And so when you go down and you say, okay, that guy next to you, you're allowed to shoot someone in the face to make sure he doesn't die. Everybody's happy, right? Everybody on the ground there is happy. And it's not a thing that, for the Obama years, which is when I was active duty, it's not a thing that you got, right? It was very much your life doesn't matter any. And it was very clear that your life didn't matter.
All right, gang. Well, you know what else is very clear? That is how much you need to get your hands on some of the incredible CBD products from our friends Carlos and Vanessa Abelar at Paloma Verde. You can find them at palomaverdecbd.com. These are two wonderful people, liberty lovers. I've been on Carlos's show too, Los Libertinos. Check that out as well. But these guys are a small family business that are providing an excellent product. So isn't that something you'd want to support? And let me tell you about CBD. If you're working out at the gym, if you're anything like Ian, working that hard, my God, you probably have some aches, some pains, some sore muscles, some knots, and that sort of thing. Man, I get this terrible knot in my my upper right shoulder. And the CBD salves, like nothing helps this thing. Like nothing helps this thing. The CBD salves actually from Paloma Verde actually did calm it down. And boy, eat a couple of those gummies. The gummies are freaking delicious. They're almost too delicious would be my only criticism. The gummies are so delicious that you almost just want to sit there and eat the whole thing. And you really shouldn't do that. Although you would be okay, because the great thing about CBD, it does not knock you out. It doesn't really make you loopy or anything like that. It is the non-psychoactive portion of the marijuana plant. So you're not going to get high or anything like that, but it is going to help with inflammation, helps you relax a little bit, helps with stress. So I highly recommend checking out palomaverdecbd.com, not just because they're a sponsor of the show, but also because we have a tremendous discount for you, a 20% off discount and free shipping for any order over $75. All you got to do, put some delicious products. They might not all be delicious. Sometimes some of them just go on your skin, You order some great products, some great CBD products from palomaverdecbd.com. Put in your discount code ROAR, 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 and get 20% off that order plus free shipping. So head over to palomaverdecbd.com. Do not forget that discount code ROAR at checkout.
How is something like that? I mean, like, what's the difference in the way they communicate to the troops or about missions that sends that message so clearly as you saw
it? So rules of engagement are a big one because they're set directly by the White House, right? Now, no White House is going to come down and be like, commit war crimes, do whatever the hell you want, rape babies, right? That's not going to happen. But nobody wants that anyway, right? But if it's, look, you're fighting war, so go fight a war, please, right? That's a big deal. And there's some other things. You need to go take stuff with nothing is sort of just rules of war, right? But hey, we're actually going to get you stuff is a big deal. And I know some guys who are coming up on like 20 years in now, and they're going, those 4 years I had more of what I needed than I've ever had in my entire career. The whole time. We asked for stuff, and yeah, it took time, and yeah, giant military bureaucracy, but you got it, right? And that's just not how the military works. Generally speaking, when I was in, I put in a requisition for it, and this is I'm not making this up. it's a little plastic square, and it plots where you are on a map. And I got told in about 2008 that I could have one about 2015. It seriously, it's just a little piece of plastic. And I was talking to some guys trying to get gear, during the Trump era, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's you will have it in your hand 100% within 6 months," which probably sounds ridiculous to the civilian world, but that's like instant as far as the military is concerned. Um, on top of that, though, is nobody. I watched Obama speak while I was in, and that guy did not give a shit about anybody in the room, and it was pretty clear. He came down to talk to us about how America was changing, and that was such a great thing. And all of us were like, pretty sure we enlisted for the country that like was, yesterday. And Trump would come down, and you can watch video of this everywhere. The guy actually sat, hung out with, talked with troops, um, and it's usually, it's going to sound really gay, but it's really little stuff, right? Like the hat blows off that Marine standing there in front of Air Force One, and Trump just walks over, picks it up, puts it back on his head. Right now, I knew guys who did Marine security guard things, right? And they talk about when Obama was there, and your job mostly was to get the hell out of his way because he didn't have time for you, and that was that. Didn't take questions really. When he came to the base and talked to us, he would stand there so you could take pictures with him. You were not allowed to ask him things, and it's pretty clear that's not what the rules were when Trump went to go visit troops. He's in among them, he's hanging out with them, all kinds of stuff, and it makes a difference, right? It's small and it's stupid, but it's what, you really do give a damn. Just that little amount, just enough that you'll probably still order us to go, do something crazy, but that's our job. That's what we signed up for. But it'd be nice if you didn't think of us as just something to throw into a meat grinder until you got what you wanted. And it's I don't know, it's difficult to describe.
I think it speaks to Trump's just understanding of human nature, and he's always been someone who's been able to get his way. But I think, especially in the business world, maybe because much of his time was spent in the business world, as opposed to in politics, where maybe you can just get your way by just barking the orders over and over, and everyone beneath you has to do what you tell them to. But when you're coming up in the business world for 30, 40 years, whatever it is, the little things do count because that's how you relate to people. And in real life, people do respond to the little things you do for them because that's what people actually notice. So it makes perfect sense that he would, whether it's just strategic or he really is, not as much of an arrogant, aloof asshole and does actually care about the troops in some way, shape, or form. Either way, it ultimately has the same effect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the output is very similar. There's a reason that, the media was very angry about that Humvee flying a Trump flag. And it's not because those guys didn't think Trump cared.
Don, why don't we just keep traveling here through the timeline, through the continuum of the last decade or so. And obviously, we all know the last year and a half or 2 years of whatever it was, I guess it was just last year of the Trump presidency, some things got a little weird in the world. So what were your thoughts when this COVID shit just started coming in? Not just, obviously, we all have been through these whispers of, oh, there's a flu somewhere in China, watch out. And then we, see on the news for 3 weeks and we just move on. We don't think it's going to affect our lives in any way. And then this happens, and it's just the exact opposite, the most extreme response you could ever imagine. And, especially in the realm of like U.S. politics, there was a lot of, this is all just to take Trump out. I think there's a bigger agenda than just, dealing with Donald Trump behind it. But I want to go back to what were your thoughts when you saw all of this unfolding, not just the sniffing of a disease, but then the response, seeing the lockdowns and everything that was coming down, which did initially happen under Trump.
So I told people the lockdowns are coming, and whenever you say something like that before it happens, everyone and their brother goes, "Shut up, crazy person!" Right? And I said, "Look, I lived through swine flu, I lived through bird flu, and they were absolutely nothing, right? Nobody, It wasn't a big deal. We all lived. We all moved on. It wasn't, world ending. But during that time, they were proposing mask mandates. They'd already come for healthcare workers. During cold and flu season, they already had to wear masks at all times if they weren't getting vaccines, right? And this was, look, people, they lay the groundwork for you. They telegraph really hard. They'll tell you what they're going to do in the future, and they'll spoon feed it to you for a while, and then all of a sudden they'll crank it down real hard. And I started watching people freak out over the video that was coming out of China. And the moment you have that panic, that's when you can ratchet down real hard. And I went, you people need to stop, right? One, it's the Chinese government. They're totalitarian wackos that hate people. So when you ask me, why would they be nailing people into buildings? Well, because they're the Chinese government and they don't give a damn, right? And if they think there's any utility in doing this, they'll do it, right? Because people don't matter to them at all. And I got, some people in my chat and stuff that were really upset with me. They were like, "Oh man, but like I had COVID and you could feel it coursing through your veins, man." I'm like, I'm not making that up. Someone actually told me. I was like, "No, you can't. That's all in your head. You need to relax."
You may be sick, but you are not feeling it coursing through your veins. Thanks.
Right. It's not the stuff that they kill people in the gas chamber with or anything. Just relax. All right. And it was, "No, Don, you don't understand how bad it is." And I understand how bad it's going to get. Right. If you don't stop this, one, Trump responds to the base. So when the whole country's freaking out, he's going to go, "We got to do something." And you know who's going to be there to do something? All these people that you hate, right? All of you who are coming to me and talking about how I need to talk about the deep state more, which at the time was a thing, was, Don, you just turn the entire show into like deep state, 101 to 300. I was like, no one has that attention span. No, I don't even have that attention span. And I've been reading about him for, 15 years. So no. And right, just on a dime, the whole country turned and went, "CDC, please rule my life." And I went, "You hated these people 2 weeks ago. What are you doing?" Right. And there were people on, the very dissident kind of right that I said, "Look, you need to stop. You need to go actually examine facts and figures." And I got ruthlessly mocked for quite a while because you're a crazy person. And the lockdowns happened. And a couple people started giving me side-eyed glances like, "Well, how'd you know?" Because they told you. They told you 10 years ago. They told you 5 years ago. They told you it was coming. And no one, the country has never been this freaked out about a virus before, right? And the freak out's what you need. And then it was, "Well, yeah, but it's only 2 weeks, bro. Shut up." And I went, "If this ends in 2 weeks, I will end my show. I will eat this hat live on TV or, live on YouTube as the last thing that I do on the internet. You will never even hear of me in a comment section again." "Oh yeah, well, like you'll do that." And I went, "Okay, now you put it. Go ahead. Tell me what's happening if it goes the other way." Then we started getting the Italian figures, and everybody's talking about, "Oh, it's killing everybody." And I went, "You don't know anything about Italy, right?"
Have you seen an Italian?
Right. Like the kind of big dudes. What can I say? And it was,
and they smoke a lot.
A little
Nothing
bit
wrong with that, but might be a factor.
It could be, right? And so on and on this goes, and the whole while during the whole 2 weeks is the first 2 weeks, everybody's telling me, "You shut up, Don. This is going to go away." And I went, "You don't get it. This is never going to go away." And I mean never, right? In all of time, until the powers that be currently are no longer the powers that be, this is going to keep going. "Oh, no, it isn't. Shut up. It's going to, we're just taking some defensive measures against the virus." And I was like, "It's not an attacking army, right? You don't stop it at the border or check its passport and send it on its way. That's not how this works." "Well, yeah, but we'll lock down and then everybody will be fine. You'll see." And about the time that we've been locked down a month, the narrative started to change on the right. And they went, "Wait a minute, maybe this isn't just going away." And I was, right, and
wait just a second here. We've been hoodwinked again.
Right. And when the economy closures hit, suddenly everybody became real interested in the World Economic Forum. And I'd been hating on them as a subsection of the UN effectively for years. And I went, oh, now we care. And it was, it was bad for a while there. I talk about stuff like the average death rate of, let's call it cooties because this will still get you banned off YouTube, right? The average death rate of cooties or average age of death of cooties was like 5 years above the average age of death in basically every Western country. And I get people who are like, you think the average age, like, you think that just means people die on the average age of death? And I was like, no, but averages, they
but on average, yes.
put, there's like a band, right? And they do stuff, right? And so if this one is further down, like this is less deadly than this, and it turns out that this is just life, right? Like at that point, we should be okay, right? Oh no, everybody's still panicked, right? And then the treatment stuff started to happen. Trump talking about stuff on TV. We should, again, I don't know what gets banned from YouTube anymore. I started broadcasting exclusively on Rumble to avoid these problems. But, he started saying, take this effectively over the counter stuff, right? Was the deal. Stuff that you could get basically anywhere. And I went, they're never going to allow that. And everyone and their brother, this is around the time that the lab leak theory first hits the internet. And everybody's like, Don, you need to understand it came out of a lab. And I don't care, right? You need to understand that where it came from, who did it, why they did it. None of these things matter except the potential of why, because why will tell you what is going on in politics right now. And it is simply a massive power. And you need to understand that. You need to understand this is going to end up one of the most horrible things that we've ever done. Oh, it's not that big of a deal, but it's really important that we financed it. I went, who gives a shit? What does that actually gain you? What, are you going to get Fauci fired? Because I don't think you're going to get Fauci fired. Oh yeah, this is how we're going to get Fauci fired. Well, how'd that turn out? Right? Which goes to what I'd been spending a lot of time on at the time, which is, look, we need to have this fight. And we need to actually pretend like it's a fight, even if we don't believe it. Oh, well, is it really that bad and that sort of thing? And thankfully, Cooties has turned a bunch of people to go, wow, this really is a fight. But way too late, right? There was a time, Trump's still in office. Had the whole country stood up and gone, hey, man, no, this is not a thing. He would have stopped. I maintain that is a thing simply because, again, he responded to the base and we didn't do it. And so we got all this nonsense. And in a truly shocking turn of events, all the big pharma that everybody on the internet has hated basically since there's an internet that we all sat around worshiping for 3 weeks, right? Didn't like Trump either. And I was like, I am so shocked that this industry that he, by the way, had been hurting for quite some time doesn't like him. Weird. And it was really mind blowing for me because people that had, whether or not I disagree with you on a handful of things, doesn't matter to me. As long as you're heading the right cardinal direction, just turned on a dime and walked the other way. Right. And I went, what are you doing? Right. People I've been talking economics with for 3 years. Right. All suddenly, well, this isn't an econ problem, Don. Like, what are the economics of this going to be? How's that going to go if we shut down everything? Well, it doesn't matter because this virus is it's the Spanish flu, bro. It's not Spanish flu, right? There's not a stack of bodies in China that you can see from the moon. It's not the Spanish flu. Stop it, right? That concentration of people, you should literally be able to see it from the moon, not just figuratively, right? But it didn't matter. Everybody's afraid. Everybody needed just a little bit of TSA type copium to get through it. And guess who was there to give it to you? The powers that be. And I think that a serious thing happened there that nobody wants to pay attention to, which is we have turned a corner as a planet, or at least the West, right? Because China just does whatever they want. But the West as a whole turned a corner right then and there. There's plenty of proof of concept for, you need people scared to be able to get stuff done. Patriotic exists. On the other hand, nothing so in your face invasive has happened in the history of the West, as far as I can't think of a single thing, right, in the history of the West that was as invasive as every single person in your house. You need to isolate your children, and then testimonials of people doing it and being praised for it. Stalin is spinning in his grave because he could not have got this done, and we did, you know, and that kind of precedent. I know, John, it's not a legal precedent. It doesn't matter.
That's worse. If it was a
Yeah.
legal president, you'd be like, well, okay, then we just got to change the laws and fix that. No, it's a mental or a cultural shift where, I mean, for example, just in a sort of a minor issue, it wasn't minor to me, but I spent a few months living in Mexico City where there is no mask law, there is no mask mandate, and 99% of people wear masks outside, alone, walking their dogs, exercising, riding bikes. So the laws are relevant a lot of times. And in this case, maybe whatever laws they might change in relation none of this shit matters when the planet, like you said, has largely just been totally fucking mindless.
Yeah. And here's the thing: is this in a vacuum? This is bad, right? If there was literally existence started in December of 2019, and we were just here now, that would be bad. However, go look at these people, right? When I was a kid, hand sanitizer was not a thing. It just, hey, go play in the dirt. You're dirty, rub it off with some more dirt, and that's just how it was. And, when, I don't know, my parents were kids, it was like, you played in the dirt, you're not dirty enough, get back in the mud hole, right? But now you've got hand sanitizer on every aisle, right? You've got hand sanitizer at the front of every store. You've got people carrying around bottles of stuff. And some of that existed before cooties, right? And this was all built
0.0002% of people were a little insane and probably carried around hand sanitizer.
right. But now, go with a nice round number of half, right? And they have the various reasons. Oh, I don't carry this because of cooties. I carry this because botulism exists in the dirt. Turns out botulism's existed in the dirt since there's been botulism. Shut up. And this slow mold of how of people everywhere. This is the kind of thing that you do to, scare the hell out of people. And when you scare the hell out of people, you get to make big moves. And then the precedent in their minds is that every now and again, you should be really scared of something, right? And just absolutely terrified. And so when the next thing comes along to scare you, you're primed and ready to go, right? Whoever, because Fauci's probably getting along towards dying these days, so he might not even see the next one. Just of old age, Susan. But he's getting along in years, so it might be somebody else, but it's going to come along in a handful of years. And by the way, he's already doing it, right? Oh, if the next variant's dangerous, we better be prepared to mask up and lock down again. It's not going away. It will be added to incrementally until whatever the next thing is comes along. And by the way, the limit to this is the limit of people's imagination. It's not like, oh man, just once we have you living in the pod, then everything will be good, right? Like, fine, live in the pod, eat the bug, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And as soon as we get there, somebody will come up with a new great idea of, I don't know, we'll make your pod 10% smaller. It'll be like taking that one, olive out of airplane salads, right? A bunch of years ago, a guy became a millionaire over. It'll be that kind of thing. There will be a next incremental step. And if you don't believe that, go listen to the transhumanists right now. What are they talking about? Oh, one day we're just going to be a brain in a box and you're going to pull it out of the machine that you're in. We'll slap it into a new machine.
Don't need to worry about diseases anymore.
Right. And once that's done, right, and let's say we get to this cyberpunk dystopia where everybody is just a brain in a box. Well, why do you need legs anymore? Let's just plug you into the Borg cube and call it a day, right? And it sounds crazy, but 100 years from now, somebody's listening to this, they're going to go, "Huh, you knew," you know, and we just keep letting it happen over and over and over again, as though somehow this time, when we acquiesce to the stupid thing that somebody comes up with, they're like, "Oh, that'll be it, right?" They just need to shut down the entire Western economy, the most powerful thing that's ever existed in all of human history, in the world of economics, for like a month. Like, I don't know. No one will ever do that again, right? Like, notoriously, people who get that kind of power just are like, you know what? Thanks. It was a good run. I'll see you later. Right. And then you get stupid people say things like, well, what about George Washington? Like, you got another one? Like one of the past 2 centuries, maybe?
You mentioned earlier, like, yeah, maybe if enough people had stood up to this in the beginning, there could be a way to fight this, but we're kind of past that point now. So what would you say is someone on, whether it's just someone on the right or just someone that just sees the general scope of what's been happening here and doesn't like it, what is one to do? Do you think there is no way to really change how things are unfolding at the global scale? And if there's not, then what are we to do? Just do stuff like this, talk about it on video shows, and just vent about it, or are there actionable steps that people can actually take? Whether it's not to change the whole course of history, maybe, but to protect ourselves in certain ways, or maybe being in certain geographic areas or something like that.
So this is not a war that will be able to be fought defensively. And if you don't believe that, I'd like you to go ask the Branch Davidians. Now, you might have some difficulty doing that, but I think your difficulties will incline you to why you can't fight this defensively, right? And that's just how it is, right? So, unless I don't know, the Peter Thiels of the world or something are listening to this show right this very moment, for the rest of you who are not multimillionaires or billionaires or whatever, that can't just go out and buy your own 5,000 acre plot and staff it with an army, you're gonna have to start small, like a really small, and it's not gonna be fulfilling for a long time. And I speak from definitive experience on that front. Look, things like, and this is going to sound ridiculous, go put together a neighborhood watch, right? Like, it's not exciting. It's not cool. Yes, you're a dorky boomer. On the other hand, you know what neighborhood watches are? A group of people who all know each other in one geographic location, right?
And trust each other.
That's the idea, right? Now, again, you're going to have a whole bunch of people who are not interested. On the other hand, self-selecting process, right? Oh, you're not interested in the general community around you? Cool. Get out.
Check you off the list, at least. I don't need to talk to you anymore.
Mm-hmm. And, oh, Dawn, I don't think I could start a neighborhood watch. Cool. Go start a hunting club, right? Because you know what? It turns out that you're going to start out you, the other guy that goes hunting, and your 3 friends, maybe, right? So the 5 guys out in the middle of the woods doing hard things together. And it turns out that you get to depend on guys that you did hard things with, right? This is why vets act like vets, right? Because, we all did hard shit. Cool, right? And you grow that. You find more people, right? Because maybe those people don't live next door to you, but if you have to drive 15 minutes, if something horrible happens, that beats, I got to drive 6 hours to the next state, to the next, county, whatever, where my blood relatives are, who, let's be honest, most of us that are into this sort of thing, half of our families think we're nuts. So they're not going to be in any better shape than you.
Half would be a great number.
Right.
If it was only half, I'd be ecstatic.
Exactly. Right. And, even the ones that kind of tolerate you are like, yeah. He's the crazy guy that talks about politics too much. Whatever. Right. But it's going to be starting small. Now, Dawn, okay, so I've got my, my 10 guys, my 20 guys, my whatever. Okay, you're gonna probably need more than that, right? Show up anytime in your life with 50 people to a city council meeting, right? Now, it's gonna seem like a waste of time. You're probably gonna have to take time off work to do it. But if you have a remotely friendly city council meeting view, so if you are not the radical left and you live in San Francisco, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, I was going to say this wouldn't have worked in my former home of Los Angeles, probably, no matter how many guys you got on your side.
You know, you got a good million or two strapped around the building, then they're going to be pissed and pay attention to what you have to say. But, you know, presumably all the rest of us are moving away from these cities as fast as we can. Where, you know, I live in a county of less than 20,000 people. Whole county, right?
County, wow. That's about the size of the small town I grew up in, but county, that's
right. And so, look, I show up to my city council meeting with 50 people. Shit, that's like 1% of the county's pissed off about something, right? But the thing is, people don't go to city council meetings. People don't go to county meetings. People don't go to any, like, they show up for the presidential election. Maybe half of those show up for the midterms, but nobody pays any attention. That's why the school board thing is effective right now, right? People are showing up to school boards and going, what the hell is going on? And it turns out it doesn't take much, right? There are places where 5 people have effectively rooted out half of this Marxist nonsense in school boards. 5 people, right? People don't show up to these things. So if you show up in force, okay, maybe they'll tell you to pound sand, and that's fine. But guess what? Turns out this kind of small local election thing, you can't fight. Oh, Don, democracy's fake and gay. Okay, cool. Don't care.
Right? I mean, it is, but we can still use it.
You know, I don't care if the hammer is pink. Does it pound nails?
That's a quote I'm going to remember. Did you just come up with that? That's like I want to see a Don the pleb face, you know, silhouette with a quote card spread around with that on it, the pink hammer in the background.
Actually, I just talk like this all the time. So yes, I just came up with that. By all means, put it on a meme and distribute appropriately. But this is, people don't look at politics like that, right? They want to be invested. They want to be, more importantly, emotionally invested. And for them, this is not a long-term fight that needs to be played more like a chess game that's going to last 10 years. It needs to be played like, I want to go out. And you know what it needs to be like is wrestling, right? And this is part of why Trump was popular, because he gets wrestling, right? And so,
we're just getting to the wrestling now, an hour in. This is my real wheelhouse here.
That's terrible because I don't watch wrestling that much anymore. In fact, basically none. But
there's not things that I could do an hour about wrestling. So I'll let you continue.
The Trump beating the hell out of CNN meme, right? That was that exact moment was very vindicating for a lot of the right. You know,
not just its existence. I mean, you know, that's very much meme culture. I think we've seen memes like that. The president tweeting that meme is what's fucking
right. Right. And him standing behind a microphone and going, enemy of the people, the mainstream media, they hate you, right? Yes, we all know it. We know it for years. The Clinton News Network. Yeah, Trump's beating the hell out of CNN, right? And we want that. We want that to be the governing principle of our lives. Well, go watch Idiocracy, because that's where that ends. Shit. Things are bad, right? Okay. I mean, by the way, now we got Kamala Harris doing exactly that, right? There's a big country and we invade a small country. So basically, that's bad. Oh, wow, thank you. Any other foreign policy advice that we can get from you idiot? But anyway, as to what you can do, right? So the thing about this is, and this is, nobody wants to have this low of a time preference, right? You get in there, you get the city council straightened out, so they're not doing just whatever dumb crap, right? Furthermore, city councils have a lot of power in cities. Nobody thinks so, but they do, right? All this stuff that people are, oh yeah, DeSantis, right? You can do that wherever you live. You can, and there's basically nobody to stop you. Your mayor, it's going to be a fight to get your mayor replaced, but it's probably not going to be a fight to get your city council replaced, or at least not that big of one. Just because there's not millions of dollars there. There's not hundreds of millions of dollars there. There's starting to be in some places. Michelle Malkin did a thing about how that happened in Colorado. Democrat Party just rolled in with hundreds of millions of dollars and took basically every seat in the whole state. And that's how Colorado went blue. But if you live in San Francisco, not talking to you, right? You're not going to be able to just
your first step is get the fuck out.
Exactly, right? Put your shit in the back of your car and drive, right? And wherever you run out of gas outside of California, stop there and try it there. All right,
It's a better place.
right? And chances are good you'll find a job that fast, right? You'll be good. And for those of you that live in California, that's not a joke. All right. Yes, even now. So you go in.
I left a lot of people behind the lines there, so I'm still begging them to come out too. But you can only do so much.
Oh man, I'm with you. Hey man, just come out and stay with me for a while. Just come take a 2-week vacation out here. I'll pay for everything except the ticket or your gas. Which I understand that suddenly is not as good of a deal anymore. But when Trump was in office, and I was saying that gas was, even in California, it was like $3 a gallon. But nobody wants to do it. Oh, well, yeah, man, we'll totally come do it. I guess. And I've had one person take me up on it. And he came out in the middle of the big Texas freeze and was like, I don't know how much you like this. And I was like, it's a once in a century storm, man. Sorry.
I swear it's not always
right. But you get, it doesn't even have to be that much power, right? And then you're going to need to learn to wield it effectively, right? You can't, political currency is a thing, right? So you can't, if you go out to kind of a purple city, right? You take over the city council and you go, okay, so we're now passing a city ordinance that we're building a trebuchet in town square and we're shooting leftists at that mountain. Like, maybe slow your roll a little bit, right? But you get in there and you say, whatever your various problem is that has agitated you to doing this. Now, oh, Don, how am I going to overturn the Fed with this? You're not. Okay. Have realistic goals. That matters. Right. But you can improve the life around you and start doing so. Right. And once you start doing so, people will notice. Some people you don't want to notice will notice. Right. The left will notice and they will come for you. Right. So the other thing you got to be doing is shoring up that power. Right. You can't have like all these career politicians you hate. You can't be them. You can't just go, well, I live in a R+60 district, so like I'll just do whatever I want. Nope, because the hit squads are coming. Right? It'll be political hit squads. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the FBI will necessarily Waco you. They might, but not necessarily, right? And then you expand, and that's it, right? But as much as it's easy for me to just say that, what I just described is 10 years, 15 years, right? And by the way, adapt the strategy to wherever you live. For those of you who don't live in America, I don't know your politics probably as well as you do, right? You have I don't know, the British have a town council that works sort of like a city council, right? And somebody over there has a real similar thing, the Italians or something like that. And look, the more corrupt country you're in, sorry, the harder it's going to be. Yeah, I get it. I'm saying that from America. On the other hand, most of our corruption is high up because that's where all the power is, right? Mm-hmm. That's where you get good concentrated power. If your locality is horrifically corrupt, right? Like if you have an open air slave market, Libya, sorry, sad news. You might have to move out of Libya.
The town council strategy might not be the one.
Right. Like you're going to go down there and be like, hey, we need to get you out of power. And they're like, hey, we haven't beheaded anybody in 12 hours. Gauge accordingly, right? There are always things you can do. The big question, and again, for those of you not in the U.S., is what and where, right? But as a general premise, for those of you in the U.S., near certain you can get your town or county seats, right? Like I don't actually live in a city. I live 10 miles from the nearest city. So county seats are actually going to affect my life. And so that's a very doable thing. No one is fighting for these things. Well, in my case, there might be just because there's a bunch of cattle ranchers out here and they have got a lot of money. But hey, look, they are also not a problem, right? I don't need to go fight them. They're not doing stupid things. But as Texas should have taught everybody by now. Oh, Don, but even in Texas, there's all this CRT and the city and county guys are promoting it. Go get rid of them. Well, I don't have any money. Well, look, it's not exactly the world's greatest success story, but I just spent the last about year helping a guy run for office down in the Midland area of Texas. Guy spent $20,000 on his entire campaign. Every single dollar that he spent was under 20 grand. And the two guys that he was fighting against dropped a massive sum of money because he's in a decent sized city area. I think $1 million each. No less than 20 grand. He took somewhere between 10 and 15% of the vote. Now, look, I'm a poor kid. All right. I don't have an ass load of money, nice mic or not. Right. It took me 2 or 3 years to be able to buy this mic, and solely because of the donations from the show. That's the kind of money I'm working with. Right. On the other hand, most of you probably know a guy who is pissed off about something, who makes a decent amount of money. And you know what? If that thing is political, and it almost certainly is, right? Hey, I think that we shouldn't be teaching kids fellatio at, second grade, which, by the way, is 90% of the country or something. Well, hey, look, how about if we go get rid of the people that do that? And I'll go do it, right? But I need your help. And tell your friends, right? Tell the guys you work with. Tell the guys you know, right? It's very doable, but people don't want to do it. And make no mistake, it's tiring, it's stressful, it's shitty. But you want this to stop? That's how you're going to do it. You're going to have to abandon video games. You're going to have to abandon, whatever it is that you do for leisure for a lot of the time that you probably do it for right now, because it's time consuming, right? Knocking on doors, hosting town halls. These things are not. You just show up for an hour and talk. You got to go get a place. You got to plan it out. You got to advertise the thing. It takes time, and sometimes it takes money. But there are people who've done this. There's that guy that just dethroned the head of the Democrat Party in New Jersey, and he spent he has corrected the meme numerous times. He spent more than $200. We spent like $2 grand, right? And now he has dethroned the head of the Democrat Party in New Jersey, mostly because he went on Facebook and went, "Everything we're doing is stupid, and we should do none of that." Right? That was all it took.
Don, I really appreciate your time. I have a hard out. I could probably do this for 2 more hours, so maybe we'll pick it up another day. But really appreciate your time, and more than anything else, I think it's easy for people like us, because we are always right, to point out, look, we were right about this thing. We were saying this, saying that, saying that. It only really gets so far. But the thing I'm trying to focus the most on now with the conversations I'm having, and I think the most important part of this conversation was the what can we do? Because that's what people come to me and ask. And there isn't, and I think you really hit the nail on the head, because what you laid out isn't easy. But sorry, everybody, this is a fucking shitstorm, and they're literally trying to reshape the world so that you literally own nothing. So it's going to be hard. I mean, we don't have an option. We can suffer under the world that they're clearly and almost effortlessly putting into place, or we can suffer by some sort of action that we choose that has some chance to make our life better. Those are the only options. And so I think you played that out pretty clearly. So before I let you go, Don, why don't you just let everybody know where they can find everything you're doing and where they can hear more from you? I know, like you mentioned, you're doing the Rumble now to avoid having to say things like cooties for an hour.
Exactly. I am the worst brander on planet Earth. And so this is going to be a shit show. Let me warn you in advance. Rumble.com/PlebMedia. That is probably the easiest one. Over on Twitter, I'm at Hilo Procurement. Over on Gab, I'm at 2_plebs. On Getter, I am at PlebMedia. Yes, probably. There is an Odyssey channel. There is still a YouTube channel. It's there. YouTube has effectively become advertisements for Rumble, because I started getting strikes for videos that weren't even published.
So, that started to happen to us too. It's like, it was one thing when it was our videos, but even unlisted shows that were only shared privately, we're getting hits. Like, okay, they're going full balls out on this one.
Yep, and it's been a disaster. We should definitely do this again, because that last thing you said there, I of course want to say like 2 hours worth of shit. So,
all right, well, we will plan a follow up in that case. But in the meantime, you can check out Don the Pleb. Look, my listeners are smart. I like to think so. They can find you wherever they choose to watch and listen to things. So, Don, thank you so much for coming on. Keep up the great work. And as always, keep on roaring, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, gang. That's it for Don the Pleb. That's it for me. Until next time, don't forget, hey, toss me a subscribe. Find that Lions of Liberty with Marc Clair feed. If you listen to the Lions of Liberty Network feed, that's fantastic. Leave me a 5-star rating and a great review. That would mean the world to me by just searching Lions of Liberty with Marc Clair on Apple Podcasts as well. Check out my Substack where I have not written anything due to the aforementioned road trip for some time, but I will certainly be getting back to that. Great time to catch up on the back catalog. It's called Metanoia. You can find it at marcclair.substack.com. Till next time, my friends.
Live long and live free and live free and live free and live free.